tales for dark nights.
The following performance is a third-round entry in the 2016 Evil Idol voice acting competition, and you, the listener, get to help decide who wins. If you'd like to hear more of this contestant, voting for them is simple and only takes a moment. Just click the thumbs up icon. Can't stand them? Then click the thumbs down icon instead, and cast them into the digital netherrealm from whence they came. You decide their fate. Good luck to all of our contestants.
The Wendigo, written by Robert Campbell, performed by Tyler Bowman for Chilling Tales for Dark Nights and the Evil Idol competition. We were done making our rounds and heading home, walking. We'd cut through the woods. Then there was an opening, and we came upon it. Blood everywhere. Splattered on the trees, the grass, the creek, everywhere. At first we figured it was a pack of wolves. We'd seen it sometimes. They can't scavenge and start hunting deer. The worst was when they'd breed with feral dogs, but this wasn't like that. Something had run up on a den of deer. Wolves won't attack a den, coyotes neither, because they get too much of a fight. There were three bodies, just torn apart. You'd see a head here, a leg there, and a torso there. Predators don't do that. They don't leave behind scraps. What had done this hadn't done it for food. It had done it for fun. But we didn't know that. We saw a bunch of carcasses, and we think it's something we got to take care of. I remember my brother telling me to go home. He thought it was a pack of feral dogs. But I wasn't leaving him, and I damn sure wasn't walking through 2 miles of woods alone, with nothing but a knife and my flintlock. Jeb had the musket, and it was cocked and full up and ready, and I wasn't going to go without it. Took me a while to convince him, but finally we began tracking whatever did that. It wasn't hard, we just followed the blood. The thing bled a deer before it got away, or it dragged one for a mile. I don't know. I know that I'd never seen Jeb that scared before that night. We started hearing noises, like trees snapping and things running cold fast. I've been in a lot of woods in my life. I've been all over this world, and I ain't never heard noises like that. Like I heard that night. I heard things. I heard animals screaming. I heard deer and heard foxes and rabbits and raccoons and birds, just scared. This is maybe 12 or 1 o'clock at night, except the fox and some birds, nothing was supposed to even be awake. But they weren't just awake, they were moving. I saw flocks of birds that just fly straight into trees, just trying to get out of there. We came upon a pack of coyotes, nearly shot a couple thinking it was what we were looking for, but then we saw they were running towards us. They ran right past us. Didn't even notice. Then some deer did the same, some rabbits and squirrels and foxes, even a couple of wild hogs. These things were supposed to be eating each other, and the only thing they cared about was getting away from there. What we were tracking, it wasn't something we were supposed to see. It wasn't something old and something we could even kill. I don't know why we didn't just go home. I think that it was his nature to go toward trouble, to fight. We get into an open valley. It was normally a cornfield, but it wasn't in season, so it was just flat dirt. We saw the tracks then. A lot of the animals fleeing the forest had paved over the land, but where that deer blood was, nothing had taken a single step, like they were leaving it for us to find. The tracks were shallow. Whatever it was, it couldn't have weighed more than 100 pounds, but it didn't really mean much. A bobcat weighing 40 pounds nearly tore out my damn throat once. All that means is that it's quick and hard to hit. So we follow the tracks, and it doesn't take us long to find where it is. There's this old church that sits on top of a hill. We get within 50 yards, and we hear this noise. A screeching kind of sound. It was sort of made up of two different sounds. One was a high-pitched screech, the other was a low-pitched growl. It was making both at the same time. We get within 20 yards and we hear this sound. I can remember thinking it sounded like paper being torn apart, while something was swinging water in a bucket back and forth. Jeb looks at me, kneels down and whispers. I gotta stay behind him because we're about to corner him. Any animal will fight when it's cornered, especially when it's a predator. But we can tell by the tracks that it's just one. He tells me it's probably a single rabid dog. Probably rabid. The plan is to sneak up on it while it's eating, shoot it, and keep shooting till it don't move no more. Then slit its throat. And if it gets to my brother, it's my job to shoot it or stab it or get it off of him. So he walks up and I'm right behind him, just a tad to his side, so I can see what it is. I wish to this day I hadn't. It was leaning over the carcass. It tore the flesh off and throws what it doesn't want to the side. There's blood all over the brick, glistening in the moonlight. It's pale white. Human looking, but not quite human. It had arms and legs like a human, but it sat like a monkey, hunched over. And its hands weren't normal. It had long fingers with claws at the end. So we see that, and my brother hesitates. He wasn't about to fire on a person, so he clears his throat to try and get it to turn around. I swear to God, all the noise just ceased. I had never heard true silence before that, and not after it. But for 2 seconds, nothing made any noise, which made it all louder when it turned around and made its shrill cry and jumped Jeb. He got a shot off. I think he missed. If he hit the thing, it didn't mind. But it was on him, tearing parts off of him. I started shooting it with the flintlock, point blank, but it barely even bled the thing. I got off 3 bullets, and then I started hitting it with the gun butt, but it wasn't budging. It didn't even register that I was even there. It was clawing at Jeb, taking off bits of his flesh. It was starting on his torso, ripping off the skin, his chest. Then it moved up. It tore off his throat. It tore off his nose, his eyes. It scalped him. Then it started digging in, ripped off the bottom half of his jaw, the little bones that were in the tube of his neck, then his ribs. I don't exactly remember what happened, but somehow my brother's knife ends up in the thing's shoulder and Jeb ends up on my back. I'm running, and by God, I'm running faster than I've ever run before or after. And it's following me. I end up back in the woods opposite the ones we'd been in. I'm heading towards my landlord's house because it's half a mile away. I can hear this thing screeching and moaning. I hear these tree branches crack and get thrown around. It sounds like something taking an axe to every single tree I pass. It's cracking so loud and often, but I just ain't looking back. Finally, I trip into chopped wood. I look up and there's my landlord and a bunch of his buddies drinking brandy around a fire. I scream and I cry and they come over. I'm telling them to call help, and then they look at me, and I'll never forget what they said. "What is that on your back?" they asked me. Just as he said it, I saw. One of those god-awful wool shirts my brother wore everywhere. It was what was left of my brother. Most of his head, his torso, but nothing after the waist. Suddenly we hear it. Screeching. He grabs me. Jeb gets thrown on the ground. I'm fighting him, crying, 'cause I think we can still save him somehow. But my brother had been gone before I even ever picked him up. They had to pick me up and throw me inside before I could end up just like him. Others and all were inside, and they're bolting the doors and getting their new muskets ready. The landlord's asking me what happened, but I just don't know what to tell him. He pieced enough of it all together to understand what there was, and something dangerous out there. The fire was still lit just outside, and through the dovetail notches of the cabin wall you could look, and someone ran to call the sûreté. Outside, we see it walk in front of the fire. I don't know what it is. One of them says it looks like an ape. Suddenly, something goes through the window. We shoot at it, but it ain't the thing. It's my landlord's dog. Just the body, though, not its head or legs. We start pushing things in front of the doors and windows. When we hear something round back, I remember one of his friends saying that the doors were open. We hear the wood just get ripped apart. It banged around some more, but then it got quiet. Not silent like it was before. I could hear it move around some. The guys were talking, making sure the muskets were ready. Someone hands me one. No sooner did I cock the hammer back than did we hear something shatter upstairs. Then we heard it screech again, except now it was louder, and it didn't echo and fade out because it was inside. We all rushed to the door leading to the kitchen and pushed salting meats and drying apple pieces on the ropes, and they all fall on us, and we got to it just as that thing did. It opened the door just a bit, and 4 or 5 men just slammed into it. It got its hand through. Someone with a rifle took care of that. Put the barrel right up to his wrist and pulled the trigger. Cut his hand clean off. Clean. That only pissed it off, though. It started pushing on that door, clawing. We were on one side, pushing as best we could, and it was on the other, doing the same. That wood was not going to hold, so someone tells us to keep our heads down. Suddenly the top half of the door is just gone. My ears are ringing, and there are splinters everywhere. 2 or 3 of them just unload on the top of that door. I really don't know where it went after that. The sûreté got there. I was still glued to that door. What was left of it. The sun was up before they got me off of it. They put me in with the nuns for a while. A lot of people talked to me, but I didn't talk back. Not for a long, long time. When I got back home, I got a job for the landlord, working on the farm. We didn't talk much. Not about the thing, but I signed up for the army when I was 18. And he sat me down to drink some brandy as a send-off. I asked him right away what the sûreté told him. The story they went with was a wild animal, probably a wolf or maybe a bear that had been hungry or protecting young. I asked him how they could say that when they had the hand. He looks at me, stunned. Tells me the hand never made it back to town. The sûreté who had it, the hand was never found, probably taken away by an animal. They said it was the paw of a bear that looked like a human hand.
Thank you for listening. If you haven't already, don't forget to cast your vote for this contestant via either a thumbs up or thumbs down vote. By doing so, you'll help us determine who will become the next permanent member of our voice acting team. At the close of voting on September 23rd, based on your votes, the top 5 contestants will progress to the 4th and final round to take place live on October 31st at our annual Halloween live stream event, based entirely on your votes. Thank you for voting and for helping to spread the word. You're listening to Chilling Tales for Dark Nights. I'm Steve Taylor, host of Chilling Tales, the podcast, encouraging you to turn off the lights and turn on the dark.
Chilling Tales for Dark Nights.